even the best things have an end. Okay. So, so it's the 20th lecture, and you will have your 20th activity. So today we'll be touching on the topics of wireless networks and the concept of Unicomb. And obviously there are issues of security which are related to usage of wireless networks. So we have covered 4 different themes this year, and so we are finishing now the IT fundamentals. And just to remind you that we still have a bigger piece of coursework, the web prototyping, which will count as 20% of the final mark. It's 20% of the final mark, but it's also, I would say, your ticket for second year. Okay. If you cannot complete this piece of coursework at a satisfactory level, you will really struggle next year. Okay. So I know that many of you have already passed the module and may be tempted not to do that, but seriously, if you cannot do that, the second year is not going to be very nice for you. So, since we are finishing, I think it's time to look at the final deadlines. So there are still 32 points to get. Okay, so it means that in principle, if you have only collected 8 points, you still have a chance to pass the module. Okay. However, for the website coursework, you will get a mark between 0 and 20. So it's not binary, you pass or you fail. You will have an actual mark between 0 and 20. So we had an activity about trends, and the deadline is today. Okay. So last time I looked, I only had 52 submissions, which is not many. Next week, we have the deadline for the mashup activity. You have also the deadline for the website coursework, so you may have a busy week. But the website coursework was set before Christmas, so in principle, with a bit of time management, you should have arranged that you may be busy at the end of, in the middle of April, so the fact that there's a bit of a clash between the two shouldn't be an issue. And the activity related to today's lecture, the deadline will be on the 5th of May, so you will have 1 month as usual. So if we look at the situation of the class, so 31 students so far have the maximal mark. They completed all the activity successfully. So congratulations to them. Maybe some of them are in this room, so well done. 75 students have passed the module, so that's good news. But it means that almost half of the students haven't passed yet. Okay, so 39 are close to finish and get to the pass mark. So by completing the remaining activities, I'm quite confident that they will eventually pass. 17 are quite behind, but if they manage to do everything now well, they can still pass, but it's going to be hard work. Yeah. And 21 have failed. Yeah. There are not enough points left for them to catch up. So the mashup activities, again, it's quite disappointing because there's not much engagement. Only 29 students submitted the early submission. So on a class of almost 200, that's pitiful. But those 29 did well. So they all passed. I mean, it's likely they are among the people who pass all the activities anyway. So I don't have much feedback to give because those, they followed the instructions, did the work, and they did well. Okay. So if you haven't done it yet, go for it. There's no trick, there's no particular difficulties. The mashup activities, you follow the instructions and you should pass it. Okay. So today we will be, as I said, looking at wireless networks and Unicomb. And at the end of the lecture, we'll be looking at your website as a piece of coursework. And I will be happy to answer any questions you may have because there's only 1 week left, so I guess you have already done quite a bit on it. You should have. And if you have questions, if you are not sure about something, I think that will be a good opportunity for asking. It's a good idea to ask me because I will be the person marking it, so usually it helps. If I'm happy, it's likely you will get a good mark. So if we look at the type of wireless networks, there are many types of wireless networks around. So the first type is the personal area networks. So here we are speaking about just a few meters between 2 devices communicating. So the technology which are used for that are either radio waves or infrared technology. So do you know any of the system using that type of networks?
Remote control?
Yeah, remote control would be an example of infrared technology and communication at a few meters. Was something you may be using every day with your computer? Excuse me?
Cordless mouse.
I cannot hear well.
Cordless mouse. Mouse.
Yeah, a mouse, yeah, that's a good example as well. So I was thinking about Bluetooth. Maybe you have heard of it. Maybe you have used it. So you have quite a few technologies which are around. The majority use radio waves, and a few use infrared technology. So the beauty of radio waves is that you don't need to point towards your device, sending waves in all directions. And if your device is within the range, communication will be established. On the other hand, the infrared technology, you need to point, like the remote control of your TV. Okay. So arguably it's a bit less user-friendly, but there are some advantages. First of all, the technology have a higher bandwidth. So if you want to transfer information using infrared technology, you will go much faster. Okay. So there is a trend now to offer more and more of those devices. Okay, so just point and click. Since you are very close to your device anyway, it's not a big deal to point, and that allows you to transfer data, especially pictures or movie, much faster. It's also less expensive. And another important point is more secure. Okay, because if you have someone who wants to try to get your data, they need to be between your device and the other one you are communicating with. Since you are just at a few meters, if it's not the invisible man, you are fully in control. So, it's unlikely that someone will intercept your data with this infrared technology. The radio waves, like Bluetooth and so on, are a bit less secure, but again, since we are dealing with only a few meters, you are more or less in control of the space, okay? I mean, depends. If you are in a lab sitting next to someone, the person next to you could intercept the data, okay? But generally, you more or less can see who is around, and you have a better understanding about who could be trying to get your data, okay? So generally, the personal area networks is quite a safe technology. Then we have the local area networks, so the Wi-Fi. So that's another issue. You are dealing with a range which is around 20 meters. That's 20 meters indoors. So outdoor can be a bit more. And in that case, you are not in control of the space. Okay? Maybe there's someone in the other room. You don't know. So that's much less secure. And we'll be seeing a video showing you, illustrating the fact that those networks spread outside the area where you work. Then you have the much larger networks, which are these metropolitan area networks, or WiMAX. So that's using 4G technology, and the range is typically 30 miles. Okay, so you will get one for a small for a town typically. So we already looked at that. One important thing with networks is the bandwidth. Okay, so what kind of bandwidth are we getting today? Is it a good day or not? That's not too bad. I don't know how much you have at home, but yeah, so we have 120 megabytes per second. They're telling us that Virgin Media could do better, but it's always the up to. Okay, so that's the absolute maximum if everything is going well. If you are the only user in the whole town, you will get that. While we are getting 120 in a day at the university where there are many users. So I think it's a pretty good network. So typically, if you were to download legally a DVD, has ever happened to download legally a DVD. So it's typically 5 gigabytes. So if we have a download speed of 40,000, we need 7 minutes. So using the university network, you will be halving that. So in 3 minutes, you should get it. So we have seen that some websites provide information about where attacks are taking place. So this one is about the activity of the networks. So Europe is very much awake. America is still asleep, except the West Coast. I think that's because they are about to go to bed. Yeah. So, I mean, it's quite interesting because if you are working with a website which is situated in the US, you know that working with it during the morning here is quite good because the Americans are not using it, they are asleep. Okay. So that's maybe something you should take into account if you are exchanging big amount of data with websites which are remote, to look at the time zone. And in terms of attack, yeah, looks that the hackers don't sleep. They are active everywhere, especially in the US apparently. Okay, so we mentioned the Wi-Fi network and the fact that they are using radio waves, which have a distance of spread which is tens of meters. And obviously it gives opportunity for attackers to try to intercept your data if they are not sent in a safe manner. So in order to illustrate that, I would like to show you a small video. So it started as an art project in a university somewhere in Scandinavia. There's a lot of snow. And what they wanted to do is to show physically where those radio waves were. Okay? So basically they walked in the streets around their campus, then around the street of their town, and tried to detect these Wi-Fi waves. So let's have a correlation between the strength of the signal and the fact that you are close to windows, because the radio waves love windows to get out. was Oslo, capital of Norway. So Oslo is a well-connected city. I think we can agree with that. But you can see also the spread of your. Excuse me. Oh, yeah, there's still some sound. Okay. Thank you. That's that. So Oslo is a well-connected city, but nowadays all cities are well connected. Okay, so I'm sure you will get some similar landscape in London. So you can see that the Wi-Fi spread is not limited to the area where the people work. They go outside in the street. You can see that sometimes in the middle of the street you still have a very good signal. You can go in a park, you get a good signal. So it means that the attacker can be very far from you and typically able to listen to what you are sending on your network. Okay. So obviously you are sending data, they have to travel. Okay? And they travel all around the world when you are connected to a site which may be on another continent. And they can be intercepted at any point. Okay, it's not just in your Wi-Fi networks. It's also the big cables we have, for example, in the Atlantic. Typically, someone could listen on those cables if they had, let's say, a submarine or, we are speaking about thousands and thousands of miles where your data are being traveling. Okay, so it's not just securing the area around your Wi-Fi. You want everything to be secure, and the solution is to use encryption. Okay, so you want to code basically the messages that you are sending, so that only the right person can decode it. So there is a specific protocol which is used on the internet, which is called the Transport Layer Security, TLS. Okay, and so when you are doing data transfer, instead of using HTTP, which is the insecure communication protocol, you use HTTPS. So basically it's HTTP plus this transport layer security. Okay. And when you are using Wi-Fi, you have similar systems which allow you security like WPA. So if we look at, for example, the website of a bank, so here I am in the part which is kind of advertising. They're telling me about their products. If we look at the URL, you can see that it starts with HTTP, which means that all communications are insecure. Anybody can listen to what's happening at the moment. Okay? The bank has decided that it's not too confidential to browse on their website to check what is the best mortgage rate and so on. And hopefully you don't feel that it's a confidential data. Maybe it is. Okay? Maybe you don't want to know people know that you are looking for buying a house. Okay? So, but generally, since it's just advertising, the data are not confidential, HTTP is used. So why is HTTP used and not the secure one? Is because the communication is much faster. Okay? Because if you want a secure communication, you need to take your data encrypt them, send the data, and decrypt them. Okay, so the encryption and the decryption phases take some time. So if you want a fast connection, you may decide not to have the secure layers. Okay? So you need to decide, or people who build websites have to decide, when they should provide easy access, quick access, but which is unsecure, and when security is paramount. Okay? So for example, on that website, if I want to sign on my account, okay, and look what there is on my account, obviously we are looking at confidential data. Okay? So let's look at my saving account, and you can see that URL has changed. Now we have moved to the secure protocol. Okay? Now you are going to do stuff which is secret. You are going to enter passwords and all those things. The bank makes sure that all that is happening in a secure manner. Connection will be a bit slower, but that's the price for security. I mean, in this specific case, the bank has done quite a good job. Okay? It has switched to the secure protocol, we believe, at the right time. Okay? But when you are surfing the net, be aware of that. Okay? Sometimes you will buy products from small companies which may not be so advanced in technology and in security, and you will do some transactions which are not secure. Okay? If you are using the big website, Amazon, eBay, and stuff, it has been done properly, and it's secure, and there's no risk. Nobody can listen to the data. But if you are buying stuff from a small company, sometimes they don't do it secure. Okay? If I look at my students, you know, they are finishing my final year students are finishing their projects at the moment. Many of them are doing e-commerce websites. And every year, I see students doing e-commerce websites where you can pay using Visa cards, and it's not secure. Okay? And some of the students may start a e-commerce website. You know, they've built something, it's kind of working, and they start selling stuff. However, it's not secure. So if you buy there, you are really at risk. So make sure that when you are buying stuff or dealing with confidential data, that the HTTPS protocol is used. Otherwise, you are really in a dangerous situation. So just check. Okay? When you are browsing, selecting the items, it's okay. You know, it's not too confidential. I mean, it depends on what you are buying, maybe. But at some point, when money is involved, passwords and so on, you want to make sure that you are in a secure environment. So just a few slides to tell you a bit more about these encryptions. Basically, there are two types of encryptions. There are what is called the symmetric encryptions and the asymmetric encryptions. Okay. So the symmetric encryptions is you have a message. It can be text, it can be image, video, it doesn't matter. And you have a secret key, typically a password, that is used in order to encrypt those data. The encrypted data are sent on the network, and only someone who has exactly the same password or secret key is able to decrypt the data. Okay? So it means that your password needs to be shared with the person you are working with. Okay? There is another type of encryption, which is called the asymmetric system. And in that case, you have two passwords. You have your private password, and you have a public password. Okay? The private password, only you have it. Nobody else, you will never share that private password with anybody. And you have a public password that is available to everybody. Okay? So it means that if you encode a message with your private password, everybody has access to the public password, so everybody can decode your message. However, if you decode with a public password, you have the proof that the message was written by the person associated to the password. Okay? So you identify the sender of the message fully. Okay? So when you have all those scam emails saying, I'm from that country, I have millions in the bank, and please give me your card number and I will transfer everything, you don't know who is sending that. If you are using this asymmetric encryption, you would decode it and you would know exactly who has sent it. Okay? Otherwise, you couldn't decode it. So this system allows you to identify exactly the person who has sent the message. Obviously, you want the message to be secret as well. Okay? So if I want to send a secret message to you, I'm going to encode the message with your public key. Okay? Everybody has access to your public key. But the only person who can decode a message encoded with your public key is the person who has the associated private key, which means your correspondent. Okay? So there's only one person who can decode it. Okay? So if you combine the two, you can encode using your key, your private key, so to make sure I am the person sending the message. You encode it a second time using the public key of your correspondent, making sure that only your correspondent can decode the message. By combining those two keys, the message is secure and we know exactly who has sent the message. Okay? So the beauty of that system is you don't have to exchange keys. Everybody has their secret key and never is going to share it with anybody else. And you have the public keys that everybody can use. Okay? So this system is much stronger than the other system. Okay? But obviously it's stronger, it's more complicated, it slows everything down. Okay? It's typically using that type of encoding is from 1,000 to 10,000 times slower than the other encoding. Okay? So already encoding is slowing things down. If you use that one, it's going to be hyper secure, but it will be very, very slow. Okay? So what the transport layer security does, it's using the asymmetric one, so the super secure one, for exchanging the key of the symmetric system. Okay? And each time you start a communication, you create some new keys. Okay? For the symmetric system. So as we said, the dangerous thing is you have to share your private key in the symmetric one. In order to share it in a secure way, you use the asymmetric one, which is very secure. Okay? So you are slow at the beginning when you exchange the keys, And then when the communication is going, you are using less secure, but since the key has been sent in a secure way, in principle it should be working. And if you look at the system which are used nowadays, there are two algorithms which are used for symmetric key exchange, and they are called 3DES and AES. So they are international standards. So just for you to know a bit, so we have seen there are two systems, the asymmetric one, which is slow and very secure, and it's very complicated. Okay, it's very advanced math, because you need that system that two different keys, you need one key to open, to lock, and another key to unlock. Okay, so it's quite complex. The other system, you just have a different key. And the technology that are using it is old technology. When I'm saying old, I'm not saying 20 years old. I'm not saying 100 years old. I'm not saying 500 years old. I'm not saying 1,000 years old. I'm saying 2,000 years old. Okay. They are using antique technology. But it works well. Okay. So this antique technology is based on what is called substitutions and transpositions. Okay. So typically, let's say that you want to send a message, and to simplify, we are going to say it's just text. The first thing we are going to do is replace all letter with a number. Okay? So A equals 0, B equals 1, and Z equals 25. So once you have done that, you can start to doing some math with the letters. Okay? So you can say A plus 3, so A equals 0, so A plus 3 equals 3, and 3 corresponds to the letter D. Okay? And also, it's a cyclic system. So if you are at Z, and you do Z plus 1, you are going back to A. Okay? So that's the kind of mathematics that they are using. So it's very basic mathematics. So one of the technology which is used the most is called the Caesar cipher. And why Caesar? You know any Caesar? Yeah, we are speaking about Julius Caesar. Okay, so we are going back a bit more than 2,000 years ago. So we are using the techniques that he used at the time. Okay, so he used that to communicate with his general when he was invading the whole of Europe. So it's a substitution cipher. So as I said, there are two types. One is substitution, one is transposition. And basically, what he was using, he was taking every letter and was adding 3. Okay. So you shift all the letters by 3 in the alphabet. So if you want to say to a general, treaty is impossible, which means we need to carry on with war, you are not going to send that message, but you are going to add +3 to every letter. So T plus 3 gives you W, and so on. Okay? Which means that now the message is very difficult to understand. If you don't know that a shift of 3 characters has been used, you will not going to understand that message. So this system is very simple. I mean, at the time, most people couldn't read anyway, so even if it had been written without coding, very few people could have intercepted it. And in order to decode it, I mean, you can do it in the back of an envelope. Okay, you don't need a computer. You can do it on a piece of paper. The problem is it preserves patterns. Okay? We know that in English, the most common letter is E. Okay? So if you send a long piece of text and you count, E is going to be the most common letter. So now if I am encoding my text using a shift, an unknown shift, I'm going to look at the text and I'll say, what is the common letter? The most common letter in this text is F. I know that the text is written in English, so that F actually should have been an E. So it means that the code is +1, and I can decode it. Okay? So for someone, for the James Bond of this world, this is a big limitation of that type of encoding, because by looking at what are the most common letters, you can get the code quite easily. Okay? Obviously, you can use a computer and try every possible shift, and one text will make sense. Okay? So, just to, do you want to try that one? So I give you the code. The initial letters were, we added 19. Yeah. Nobody seems to be really in the mood. Students are so lazy. Okay, I give you the answer. And you could look at it at home. So we have seen one technique, okay, which is the substitutions. And that's the technique which was used by Julius Caesar. So for each letter, you replace by another letter. However, the letter stays in the same order. So the other technique is called the diffusion, and it means you are going to change the position of the letters. Okay? In the diffusion, you change the positions, but you don't change the value of the letters. Okay? And obviously, if you want to have a good encoding system, you are going to mix both. You change the values and you change the position. And if you do it in a clever way, it will be very hard to break. Okay? So the transposition method is even older than Julius Caesar. Okay? So that's coming from Greece. Okay? Since 5th century BC. So basically what they had a piece of wood with a very specific diameter. Then you take a strip of leather and you wrap it around the wood. And then you write horizontally. And then you remove you unwrap it, and you get letters on your strip of wood, of leather. And if you don't have the right piece of wood, you have no idea how they communicate with each other. Okay? So typically, you could have that message, which is going to be encoded in that message. If you don't have the right type of piece of wood, you will never be able to decode it. Okay? So that's a very clever way of for encoding messages as well. Okay. So typically, you have a message. You are going to arrange it in rows. So here we are going to decide rows of 4. And we are going to write the message now using the letters vertically. Okay. And that's your new message. And if you don't know that you need to read the message by going every 5 letters, because you have 5 lines. So to read the message, you have to go every 5 letters. You go to T, to H, to I, to S, and you carry on. So if you don't know that there's this shift, this transposition of 5, you cannot read this message. Okay? And this message, and this technique is quite good because we said in the substitution, you just look at the letters, and the most common is E, so if it's not an E, it tells you what the code is. Here, you haven't changed the letters. So if you do the study, you will find that E is the most common. Doesn't help you at all in order to decrypt the message. Okay? So it's a very secure way of encoding a message. So obviously, if you combine that with the other one, it gets even more secure. So basically, that's what the data encryption standards did. Okay? So they are combining substitution and transpositions. So they are using these very old techniques, these antique techniques, but they are using them many times. Okay? So 16 iteration. So you have an algorithm where you say, okay, I start by a substitution. I do a transposition, substitution, transposition. You do a few times, and this algorithm is done 16 times. Okay? So you are mixing everything so many times that at the end, it becomes really a difficult message to encode. The good thing about that type of encoding is that the operations are very simple. Okay? The math are basically just additions. Okay? Which means that you can build a chip, a piece of hardware, which is going to process that in a split of a second. Okay? Which means that the fact that you need to encode everything is not going to cost you too much. When this standard was set in '76 and it became the international standard, they decided that the keyword, the password, or the key, was 56 bits. Okay? And the beauty of this algorithm is you use exactly the same algorithm for encoding and decoding. If you run it twice, you go back to your initial system. So you can see it's a very clever algorithm. Okay? So you just build one chip, and you can use it for encoding and decoding. And this algorithm worked perfectly well for 30 years. Yeah? And then some people decided to use millions of CPUs. And they say, yeah, we are going to try all the possible keys. There are only 56 bits, so the number of keys is not that big. Okay? And they broke it in 2006. Okay? And getting millions of computers is not very difficult on the internet. Okay? So now, this system is unsafe. 30 years is pretty good, having safe. But the algorithm is still very sound, and there is no flaw, which is known. Okay? The only flaw is now you have enough power to try every possible password. Okay? So, but the algorithm is still strong. You cannot do any reverse engineering in order to try to get the message. So since the problem is that the password was too small, they just created triple-less. You encode your message 3 times using 3 different passwords. And now it's secure. Okay? The algorithm works well, so the problem is the key, which was too small. So now you use 3 keys, and it makes it, according to the calculations, even using millions of CPUs, you would need thousands of years to decode a message by trying all possibilities. Okay? So thousands of years sounds pretty secure. Yeah. Obviously, CPUs are making progress, and maybe 1 million of I mean, now that we have GPUs, you can get thousands of processing units quite easily. So maybe 1 million computer is not that big. Maybe 1 billion, maybe something we could get in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. But for the moment, we are pretty secure with that. However, since they were quite alarmed by the fact that this algorithm was broken, they created a new standard as well, which is using a password which is 128 bits. Okay. So now there are, if you want, two standards, the ones where you do it 3 times, so you can reuse the old chips and so on, and the new one. So the new one is somehow preferred because the encoding, you just do it once. While here you have to do it 3 times, which slows down things a bit. If you are interested in the details of DES, here are the type of operations which are done when you are encoding a message. Okay, so you are permutating letters, you are doing substitutions, you are doing additions and stuff, and you are combining it with the key. So it's very basic stuff. The only thing is you do it in an order which is very clever, and you do it many times. Okay. So yourself, have you ever been victim of any identity theft? Maybe on Facebook, because Facebook wasn't secure until recently. No? Your email account? Never been hacked with your email account? I know people, and obviously maybe the most worrying one would be the bank account. So we are going to watch again a small story about someone who was hacked and what happened and so on. This video contains strong language. So if you think you cannot, handle it, you are free to leave the room.
I first knew that I'd been hacked when I was in the middle of a really busy work meeting and my phone exploded suddenly with calls. Kind of in frustration, I set up a new account somewhere else with no contacts in it, and not really knowing what to do or who to email, I just fired an email off to my own account, to the hacker. That's what I addressed it as. And just said, I can't believe what you've done. Can I please at least have my contacts back? Who are you? And it was just a kind of way of venting my frustration really, but I was really surprised when sort of less than 10 minutes later, this email response pops up in this new account, and it's from myself. It's from my address. Someone is sitting inside my account and waiting to email me back, and it just said, I'll give you your contacts back for 500 quid. And I wrote back saying, 1, I don't have 500 quid. 2, I have no guarantee that you would give it back to me even if I did pay the 500 quid. And 3, do you ever feel even slightly bad about what you're doing? And I didn't expect to reply, and instantly I got another one and just said, it's better than robbing people on the streets. I don't really have a choice about this.
Oh, that makes a lot right then. Good morning, Joanna. It just feels, it must feel really creepy.
It does feel really weird because you've lost all of your contacts, so you can't really be sitting there emailing anyone else. And the only person you can email is your old account, and this person's writing back to you. And we ended up having an exchange of about sort of 9 or 10 emails, almost instantaneously debating this person's morality. And they're just sitting inside your account. You have no idea where they are, who they are, what their intentions are, or what they could do with all of your personal information that's in there. It's really quite...
And this person had been sending messages to all your contacts about something that wasn't happening to you?
Yeah, they sent out a message to 5,000 contacts in my address book saying I needed some money desperately to be able to get home after being held up at gunpoint. And they just literally blanketed that out to everyone. And the thing that got me was that it was all of my elderly, non-internet savvy, sort of often like maybe kind of migrant friends who were responding to that, who couldn't see through it being a scam. They were only the ones who are most worried about me and most likely to go across and send the money.
How did you resolve it in the end?
Well, that's the problem that really struck me, is that you sort of feel completely powerless, because I tried instantly to get hold of Google, and there is no one
So it's a
to
Google-
contact.
Google
Yeah,
email.
I should say it's a Gmail account.
Yeah.
And I literally kind of tried to contact them. There is no phone number to call for this kind of problem. I sat on the phone and got hung up on a couple of times. Google's head office refused to answer anything that I was addressing to, even when I said I was a journalist and wanted to write about it. And I think that really got me, because Google and Gmail makes a lot of money on the idea that it's the human face of the web. It's a friendly company. That's why we like it. And the idea that you couldn't actually talk to someone afterwards was quite difficult.
We have got a statement from Google, and I'll just read it out as well. A Google spokesman saying, at Google we take online security very seriously. We are always developing technologies to help protect our users, and last week launched the Good to Know campaign to educate on the steps all internet users can adopt to keep themselves safe online.
So tell me, how often does this sort of thing happen?
Sadly, it's becoming increasingly common. The content of the email that goes out varies quite a lot. In Rowena's case, it was a kidnap email. In other cases, we've seen people who claim, oh, I've lost my passport, I've lost my bag with my phone in it. There's normally a good reason given why they can't use their mobile phone and are resorting to an email. And it always creates a sense of urgency in order to try and get friends to send money quickly.
Okay, so how does it happen? How do they get in there?
Well, by far the easiest way is to somehow get your password. And there's a number of ways they can do that. Very often just by watching over your shoulder in coffee shops or on the train or in an internet cafe. They can also have quite a good guess by looking at personal information on social networking sites and finding out your hobbies, the names of your family, the names of your pets. And failing that, they can resort to technical methods and phishing emails. So you can get an email that says your account is about to be closed, enter your details here to stop it. And of course the details go to the criminal. Or in a very worst case, they'll actually put some malware on your computer which looks for when you send your password and sends it to the criminal.
So did you end up paying £500, or what happened to Rona?
No, I just wrote back and said I've got no guarantee to send me the money. I have no intention of giving this money to you at all. What happened was that I had a friend of a friend who worked at Google really helped me out, and it didn't take very long when they sat down to do it. But I'm not sure if they would have done that if I wasn't a journalist or if they weren't.
Were they able to track down the perpetrator?
No, and that's the thing, is that you don't really think that anything's going to happen with this, because there wasn't a huge amount of money stolen. The police don't give it a huge amount of time. They don't have the resources. These are often kind of scams that are in other countries, and Google has no formal means of joining up with the police, as far as I can see. But the thing I would really like to make clear here is that even though the kind of physical resources weren't taken off me, there's a psychological impact that's going on there. And if someone's got your email account, that hacker, after they knew I was writing about it, sent me quite a lot of threatening messages afterwards, saying, not to be too fine points, but you're an ungrateful bitch. You don't do that. If you write to the press about that and publish the things you're planning to, I will let the world know your secrets. I've got copies of all your emails.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's just, however unlikely it is that that person is going to be doing those things, the point is they could.
Yeah. Anybody who has a Gmail account? Okay, so we said that, the most basic way in order to hack is just to look at the person typing the password. That's a very easy way. Obviously, the other issue is that people are not using secure communication, as we have seen before. And a few years ago, many major companies that all of you are using regularly, maybe daily, were not taking security seriously. Okay. So there is a security company who decided to alert the world of the inadequacy of all those big companies. So what they did, they produced an app for Firefox that you could download, install in a couple of click. And using that app, you can get the passwords of everybody on your Wi-Fi. Okay? So now, in the past, only the hackers had the technology to do it. That security company has said, all those big companies don't do anything about it. So we are going to create a big issue. We are going to give this tool of hackers to the general public. Now everybody will be able to listen to everybody else if the communication is done through an insecure manner. Okay? So, it was a big success because now all the big companies have changed their security stuff. Okay? But I think it was quite an interesting move. Okay? And that was just a few years ago. Okay? So, again, there is a small video which demonstrated how to hack the passwords from other people when people were using those companies. There are not companies that you know that you may be using a lot, just Facebook, Hotmail, Amazon, very unknown companies that very few people will be using. So it shouldn't concern many people. Yeah. Cannot hear anything, can you? In the past there was a button, now it's all electronic. So. Let's try. Now. Okay, so you have the link. So unfortunately I'm not going to be able to show it now. But basically you install the stuff. You go in a Wi-Fi area, and when people log on Facebook, Hotmail, Amazon, at the moment of logging, all the passwords are captured by this application. So you can have access to all their accounts and do what the user could do. Okay? So you can watch that in your own time because the sound has let us down. Fortunately, all those companies now changed their way of operating. Okay, so that specific threat doesn't exist anymore. But we know that hackers are very clever people, and sure that they have found new ways of getting that type of information. Okay, so now let's go to the concept of Unicomb, so ubiquitous computing. Okay, so in the past, computing was very simple. Okay, you had a desktop computer in a corner, and if you wanted to interact with the web or so on, you had to physically go to that desktop computer. Okay. Then we moved to mobile devices first, laptops with Wi-Fi. Now, obviously, we have our smartphones. So now, physically, we don't have to go to a specific place, and in order to interact using the internet and so on. Okay, but it remains a process where the user is fully in control, and the user initiates the communication. Okay, you are the one who decides to go on Facebook and do things. Okay. In the ubiquitous computing paradigm, it's different. You are living in a world where you are surrounded by computers. So it's not your computer anymore. You have computers all around. There are sensors all around. And they are going to initiate communication with you. Okay? Typically, you are entering a room. The person is going to be recognized. They are going to put automatically your favorite TV channel, and they are going to raise the temperature because you like your room to be at 20 degrees. Okay? So now the communication is very different. It's indirect communication. The system is going to sense what is around. The system is going to recognize you. The system will know about your habits. The system will be able to measure the temperature of the room, for example, and automatically change things without you directly using your mobile and saying, I want to increase the temperature or change the channel. Okay? So it's a very different paradigm, because somehow you are not fully in control anymore, or you are very indirectly in control. Okay? It's just because now everywhere you have networks, and everywhere you have computers, you have cameras, you have sensors. Okay? So hopefully that's going to make our life easier, even if I didn't manage to change the sound using a very sophisticated computer system. Okay. So I'm going to show two examples of this ubiquitous computing. One example is real. Okay, it happened in one of the world cities which is the most advanced in technology. It happens for real. The second one is more of a science fiction view of how it could be, but it's not very far from reality. Okay. Now it looks a bit science fiction. We can do only a few of the things. In 10 years' time, maybe that will be fully existing. No, that's not the one. Let's start with the actual one. So that was 5 years ago. So you can see that technology already must have improved quite a lot. But that was real, okay? That happened Victoria Station. So we can expect that kind of stuff to be very common, this virtual reality, okay? So now let's look at something which is a bit more of a science fiction, but again, not very far from current abilities. So I think those examples illustrate quite well what this Unicomb paradigm is, okay? And that's where the world where we are moving to, okay? Trying to make our life easier, trying to understand what we want to do, and try to improve communication even before you ask for it. Okay, so we look at the last activity. So there's been a bit of mixed up in the activity numbers. We missed number 18, I think. Yeah, we went from 17 to 19. But in principle, it doesn't matter. You have 20 activities, and that one is the last one. So in that activity, you will need to do a bit of research. Okay, I want you to learn a bit about wireless technologies and protocols. I want also you to do some experiments, okay, using your smartphone, your laptop, or you can borrow a laptop and see stuff about the Wi-Fi, about download upload speed, the concept of personal hotspots. So some of them is research, some of the stuff is a bit more practical. Okay, I mean, there is no programming and none of that here. And then I want you to be a bit creative and to go in that Unicomb paradigm and start imagining what could happen in 5 years' time. Okay? I would like you to design some kind of scenario. I mean, it's not an essay, okay? Again, it's a couple of paragraphs. But imagine that you go to a shop like IKEA and you buy a piece of furniture or, I don't know, a fridge or whatever. What kind of Unicomb technology could be associated to that piece of furniture or that item? Okay, so that's a bit of a science fiction. That's about your creativity. So we don't want something too crazy, okay, but something which you think it's reasonably possible that it will exist in the next 5 or 10 years. Okay, so that's for you to explore a bit this Unicomb concept. Okay, so that's the end of the lecture, and as you know, there's this big piece of coursework which is expected next week, and so I guess you have already almost finished, but you may have some questions about some aspects of the work to make sure that you will get a maximal mark. Any question? Yeah?
For the programming side of things, I was looking at the mark scheme saying advanced, like the highest level is advanced programming. What do you consider advanced programming to be?
Okay, so if we look at the marking scheme here, okay, so am I expecting you to do some programming, some programming in PHP and JavaScript? Okay. So if you don't do any PHP or JavaScript, you are below the expectations. Okay. Maybe you use HTML and CSS. Okay. But I mean, they are valid technology, and it's the only thing you can do. Just do it. You will get some points for it, but that will be below expectations. Then, what would be close to expectation, or just above or below, is for you to use PHP codes that you will have found here or around, or some very basic functions like getting the dates, you know, just one-line codes. Okay, so that's would be close to expectation. It's not very proper programming, but you are using a bit of PHP, you are using a bit of JavaScript, and you have a very basic level in that. So if you, in order to meet expectation, I would like you to do stuff which is a bit more advanced. I mean, it's typically the stuff we have done during our activities. You know, we have done PHP activities, you have to write some code, different files which communicate with buttons and so on. Same thing in JavaScript, okay? So that's what I would expect for this work, this piece of work, okay? So it's not a very complex piece of code, but there are different elements, and you may retrieve some stuff from the web, integrate it in your system, do a few changes here and there, okay? And you would be in the met expectations category, okay? And then there are people who are going to write their own code, okay? Basically from scratch, a new function that they wrote themselves, so it's going to be 10, 20 line functions. They have a full understanding of each single line. It's not just something they got from the web. They understand roughly what it does, and I change this and that in order to be adapted to my application. Here is proper JavaScript, proper PHP, written from scratch. Okay, so that's, as I say, it's exceeding expectations, but we haven't seen that during this course. Okay, our course is limited to that level. Okay, but for people who have done some extra efforts, we have prior knowledge, or we have studied a bit harder, that's the category where they can shine. Okay? So that's about the technical complexity. Any other question? I mean, something which is very important and is I want a website which is working. Okay? Because in the latest activities, I asked for a website. You know, we had to change the question-answer system, and people send me files through Dropbox, Google Drive, or I'm not interested in files. Okay, what I want is a link. I click on it, and I can use your application. Okay, I don't want files because I cannot use your files. My computer doesn't understand PHP. Most computers don't understand PHP. If they are not hosted by a server, those files are not understood. Okay? And I'm not the one who is going to take your files, put it on a server, and try to run it. Okay? So if you don't do that, you are going to fail the application, this piece of coursework. Yeah?
I have a question. What documentation is required?
So, documentation. Okay, so I'm expecting first the URL. Okay, if you don't have the URL, you have failed. Then the description of the website. Okay, purpose and expected audience. Okay, what is it for? What is supposed to do? What are the functionalities? Okay, so here it's not that technical, but tell me what I'm looking for. Okay, my websites provide the date, provide a calculator, provide that, just a small paragraph telling me about what you have done. That's where you need to show off. Because you tell me that's the functionality I've implemented, that's the functionality I'm going to test. Okay, on your website when I will be using it, using the URL you have provided. Okay. And then I would like some technical description. I will need, obviously, in appendix, all the code you have written. But I will, for each functionality, I would need some technical description. What technology? Is it JavaScript? Is it PHP? Is it HTML? Is it CSS or what? And explain to me what are the main components in order to implement that. Okay. So maybe you are just going to say, this stuff, I downloaded this function from a website, and you give me the website, because it does something very similar. And what I have done, I have changed that line and that line in order to adapt it for my particular application. Okay? So as I said, using the code of someone else is fine. Okay? We don't want to reinvent the wheel, but you just tell me where it's coming from. Okay? So I know exactly what is yours and what is not yours, and I can see what is the added value that you have provided. Some of you may generate a lot of functions, okay? And I don't want a huge report, okay? I guess something around 5, maybe 10 pages would be more than enough, okay? Without the appendix, okay? So if you have created a lot of functions, you don't need to describe all of them, just describe the most complex ones, okay? If you have done some very fancy PHP stuff, it's maybe not necessary to explain to me how you did HTML stuff, you know, in a very, very basic function, okay? I mean, it's really about showing off and telling me, technically, I'm good because I have done that. So easy stuff, you don't need to speak too much about it if you have done some more advanced stuff. Obviously, if your development capabilities are quite low, explain in details your HTML, your CSS. Okay? You will get points for that, even if it's not at the level I would expect. Is that answering your question? Any other question? Yeah?
Wait, so you want a Word file and a link to the website as the submission?
A Word file, a link to the submission, which is going to be in the Word file, and a copy in the Word document, your code. Okay. Because, for example, your PHP code, I will not be able to see it if it's on a server, so I just need a copy of it. Anything else?
Wait, what's the minimum number of web pages?
I mean,
Or does it not matter?
I mean, there's not really a minimum. I mean, I guess 2 is the minimum. You know, you have a form, and the data are used for doing something else. So, you know, it doesn't need to be a fully fleshed website. I mean, you have seen the very basic website we have done in the activities. Okay, so I'm not asking something. It's more about, we have done many activities, we have seen many technologies, let's create a website combining all those things together. Okay, so it doesn't need to be very pretty, it doesn't need to functionally to make a lot of sense. Okay, you may have a calculator and a holiday booking stuff, which has nothing in common, but you are showing off your technical expertise. Okay, that's what I'm really interested in. You can see that there are 20% of the mark that I give if you have done something which is a bit pretty, but that's just a small amount. Okay, so it's some kind of bonus for someone who has done something a bit useful, let's say, or who work a bit on the design and stuff. I mean, to be honest, this stuff is more to help to boost a bit the marks of the people who don't have much technical abilities. Okay, If you cannot do it complex, do it beautiful, and I will give you a few points. Okay, that's what is behind it. But that's not very important in my view, because this piece of coursework, that's really the key about what we have learned this year. Okay, if you can complete that satisfactorily, I can ensure you that your second year you will be in very good position. Okay. If you don't, it means that maybe you have just managed to do the easy activities, you are just walking along, and next year will be a bit difficult. As you are aware, you have mentors, so they can help you with the technical aspect. There is also the SEC Academic Success Center, which help people in programming. Usually it's people who are doing a PhD in computing science, are earning a bit of money by supporting the programming of people, students like yourselves. So please use their services, because you will learn a lot in the process. So for this piece of coursework, there is no initial feedback. Okay, it's not like the activity. After 1 week, if you have submitted, I tell you if you have passed or not, and if you have not passed, you have a second chance. This one is a standard piece of coursework. There's only one deadline, and then I will mark it. Obviously, for that piece of coursework, you will get a very detailed feedback. Okay, and as I say, your mark will be marked out of 100%. Okay, it's not just a pass or fail. Any other question? No? So, also, you know that we are looking for mentors for next year. So obviously, people who have done well this year will be very welcome to be mentors. Okay, and obviously, completing that piece of coursework is a requirement if you want to become a mentor next year. If you have already passed and you say, yeah, I don't do that, I'm feeling a bit lazy. That may be the strategy of some people, but in order to become a mentor next year, that's not a good strategy, because that's not the attitude that I want to see in people supporting first-year students next year. Okay. So thank you for your attention, and best of luck with this piece of coursework in particular.
Is the submission going to be on Study Space?
Yeah, I think it's already on Study Space. No? It's using Turnitin. You know Turnitin? So we will be checking about plagiarism and all those things. Study Space.